The 1990s gave us more than just explosive blockbusters. It redefined how war stories were told. These films didn't just depict battles, they pulled us into the souls of those who fought, loved, and endured. From gritty realism to sweeping epics, here are 15 must-watch 90s war movies that forever changed the genre. 1. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. Picture this: a gray dawn over the beaches of Normandy. The roar of the surf drowned by the deafening scream of artillery. Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan didn't just depict war, it dragged audiences into the chaos. The opening D-Day sequence remains one of cinema's most harrowing recreations of combat, with handheld camera work and sound design that left viewers physically shaken. The film follows Captain John Miller and his squad as they embark on a dangerous mission to rescue Private James Ryan, whose brothers have all been killed in action. The premise, inspired by the real-life Neelan brothers, becomes a meditation on sacrifice, leadership, and the cost of duty. Spielberg assembled an all-star cast: Tom Sizemore, Edward Burns, Barry Pepper, and a young Vin Diesel, each bringing authenticity to their roles. But it's Hank's quiet gravitas that anchors the story, portraying a man balancing military obligation with moral conflict. At the 71st Academy Awards, Saving Private Ryan claimed 5 Oscars, including Best Director. Yet, its loss to Shakespeare in Love for Best Picture remains one of the Academy's most controversial decisions. Decades later, the film's influence is undeniable. Its gritty realism reshaped war cinema, inspiring countless films, TV series like Band of Brothers, and even video games. Saving Private Ryan didn't glorify battle. It revealed its brutal truth, leaving audiences to grapple with the question, was the mission worth the cost? 2. Schindler's List, 1993. War cinema often focuses on the battlefield, but Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List showed that the most profound battles can be moral ones. Filmed in haunting black and white, this Holocaust drama recounts the true story of Oskar Schindler, Liam Neeson, a German industrialist who saved over 1,000 Jews from Nazi extermination. The film captures the dehumanizing machinery of genocide with stark precision. Ralph Fiennes delivers a chilling performance as Eamon Guth, a sadistic Nazi officer, while Ben Kingsley plays Schindler's steadfast accountant, Itzhak Stern. Neeson's Schindler is complex, a man of profit transformed into a reluctant hero, risking everything to shield his workers from death. Spielberg's choice to use minimal music and natural lighting adds documentary-like authenticity. When color does appear, in the form of a little girl's red coat, it burns into the viewer's memory, a visual reminder of innocence lost amidst horror. Schindler's List swept the 66th Academy Awards with 7 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. More than a film, it became a cultural touchstone, used in classrooms to teach history's darkest chapter. By focusing not on armies but on individuals, Schindler's List expanded the definition of the war genre. It showed that a single act of compassion can defy an empire, and that heroism sometimes wears the most unlikely face. 3. Braveheart, 1995. Before the first battle cry, before the clash of swords, Braveheart opens with sweeping vistas of the Scottish Highlands, a land as fierce and untamed as the man who would fight for it. Mel Gibson directs and stars as William Wallace, a 13th century Scottish warrior who led his people in the First War of Independence against England. While historians have debated its liberties with fact, there's no denying the film's emotional impact. Gibson's Wallace is a figure of raw passion, driven by love, loss, and a burning desire for freedom. The rallying cry, "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," became one of cinema's most quoted lines. Battle scenes were staged on an epic scale, with thousands of extras and gritty, blood-soaked realism that broke from the glossy medieval epics of earlier decades. James Horner's soaring score added a romantic sweep to the brutality, making victories feel triumphant and defeats devastating. Winning 5 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director, Braveheart influenced a wave of historical war dramas, From Gladiator to The Last Samurai, it's a film that makes you feel the mud under your boots, the chill in your bones, and the fire in your heart. 4. The Thin Red Line, 1998. Sunlight filters through tall grass. The sound of insects hums faintly before it's drowned by distant gunfire. Terrence Malick's. The Thin Red Line isn't just a war film, it's a meditation on existence, nature, and the fragility of life amidst chaos. Adapted from James Jones's novel, it offers a poetic retelling of the Battle of Mount Austin during World War II's Guadalcanal campaign. Unlike the relentless pace of other war films, Malick crafts moments of stillness. His camera lingers on windswept hills and soldiers' faces, searching for the humanity behind the helmets. The cast is a who's who of 90s cinema: Sean Penn, Nick Nolte, Adrian Brody, Elias Koteas, Woody Harrelson, and a young Jim Caviezel, each inhabiting men grappling with fear, duty, and mortality. The narrative drifts between perspectives, giving the film an almost dreamlike quality. Voiceovers reveal inner thoughts, meditations on love, death, and the nature of war that contrast sharply with the violent reality on screen. When combat erupts, it's sudden, jarring, and unromantic, stripping away any notion of glory. Cinematographer John Toll bathes the film in natural light, while Hans Zimmer's haunting score pulses beneath the imagery, blending melancholy with urgency. The result is less a linear story and more a tapestry of human experience in wartime. Premiering in the same year as Saving Private Ryan, The Thin Red Line offered an entirely different vision of war, introspective instead of visceral, philosophical instead of procedural. It earned 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director, and remains a film that divides audiences. Too slow for some, transcendent for others. Malick's return to directing after a 20-year absence proved that war cinema could be as much about the soul as the battle. It's a reminder that even in war's ugliest moments, beauty persists, in the earth, in memory, in fleeting moments of connection. 5. Three Kings, 1999. In the blinding heat of the Iraqi desert, greed and conscience collide. David O. Russell's Three Kings defied war movie conventions with a hybrid of action, satire, and biting political commentary. Set in the immediate aftermath of the Gulf War, it follows 4 American soldiers, played by George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Ice Cube, and Spike Jonze, who stumble upon a map leading to stolen Kuwaiti gold. What begins as a heist turns into a moral reckoning. As they cross the desert in search of treasure, the soldiers encounter Iraqi civilians suffering under Saddam Hussein's regime, people abandoned by U.S. promises of liberation. Faced with this reality, their mission shifts from self-interest to a dangerous rescue operation. Russell's direction employs unconventional techniques: bleach bypass processing for stark, high-contrast visuals, abrupt tonal shifts from comedy to tragedy, and surreal, slow-motion depictions of violence. The film's unique look was matched by its sharp script, laced with absurd humor, yet grounded in authentic human stakes. The dynamic between the leads is electric. Clooney's pragmatic officer clashes with Wahlberg's wide-eyed soldier, while Ice Cube's steady presence and Jonze's naive enthusiasm add depth and unpredictability. Together, they form a ragtag unit that evolves from opportunists to reluctant heroes. Upon release, Three Kings was praised for its originality and political boldness, unafraid to critique U.S. foreign policy while delivering gripping action sequences. It tackled the messy moral gray zones of modern warfare, the blurred lines between occupation and liberation, heroism and exploitation. In the end, the film leaves its audience with a question: what would you do when the line between right and wrong shifts in the desert heat? In an era dominated by straightforward war epics, Three Kings proved that the genre could be smart, stylish, and subversive. 6. The Hunt for Red. October 1990. Cold waters, silent engines, a game of cat and mouse beneath the waves. John McTiernan's The Hunt for Red. October isn't about blood-soaked battlefields. It's about the quiet tension before the trigger is pulled. Based on Tom Clancy's best-selling novel, it's a Cold War thriller set in 1984, when Soviet submarine captain Marco Ramius, Sean Connery, takes command of the Red October, a new, virtually undetectable nuclear sub, and steers it toward American waters. Is he defecting or preparing to launch? That's the question haunting CIA analyst Jack Ryan, Alec Baldwin, who races to decode Ramius's intentions before an international crisis erupts. The tension is sustained not through explosions, but through strategy, diplomacy, and the claustrophobic confines of the submarine warfare. Connery's portrayal of Ramius is commanding, a man of principle playing a dangerous game against both his superiors and his enemies. Baldwin brings a cerebral intensity to Ryan, while a supporting cast that includes Sam Neill, James Earl Jones, and Scott Glenn adds weight to every scene. McTiernan stages the action with precision. The sub interiors feel lived in and operational, while model work and practical effects make the underwater maneuvers gripping. Basil Poledouris's score swells with Russian choral themes, adding an operatic grandeur to the suspense. Released at the twilight of the Cold War, the film struck a chord with audiences, becoming a box office hit and earning an Oscar for Best Sound Editing. It remains one of the most iconic naval thrillers ever made, a story where the deadliest weapon isn't the torpedo, but the mind of the man who commands it. In a decade of big-budget spectacle, the hunt for Red. October proved that war films could be built on intellect as much as firepower, making silence as thrilling as an explosion. 7. The Last of the Mohicans, 1992. A drumbeat echoes through the forest. Mist curls over the Hudson River Valley. Michael Mann's The Last of the Mohicans is not simply a historical drama. It's a sweeping romantic war epic set against the French and Indian War of the mid-18th century. Daniel Day-Lewis delivers one of his most physical and passionate performances as Hawkeye, a white man adopted by the Mohican tribe, caught between cultures and conflicts. Alongside his adoptive father, Chingachgook, and brother Uncas, Hawkeye becomes entangled in the British and French struggle for control of North America, while also falling for Cora Munro, the daughter of a British colonel. Mann's meticulous attention to detail turns every scene into a painting. From the thundering musket volleys to the intimate glances between lovers, the film moves effortlessly between brutality and tenderness. The battles are fierce and chaotic, but it's the emotional stakes, the fight for identity, for love, for survival, that give the story its heart. The score, a collaboration between Trevor Jones and Randy Edelman, remains one of the most iconic in film history. Its swelling strings and driving percussion mirror the urgency of the chase and the tragedy of inevitable loss. While not a traditional war movie focused solely on combat, The Last of the Mohicans uses its historical backdrop to explore the human cost of empire and expansion. It's a story of cultures colliding, of alliances forged and betrayed, and of love enduring in the shadow of war. By the time the final, wordless sequence plays out on the mountaintop, it's clear this is a war film where the heart beats as fiercely as the drum. 8th Gettysburg, 1993. The thunder of cannon fire rolls across Pennsylvania farmland. Smoke rises, shrouding soldiers in a ghostly haze. Gettysburg is an epic retelling of one of the most pivotal battles of the American Civil War, a 3-day clash that would help decide the fate of a nation. Director Ronald F. Maxwell adapted Michael Shara's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Killer Angels, assembling an ensemble cast that includes Jeff Daniels, Tom Berenger, Martin Sheen, and Sam Elliott. Each actor embodies a real-life figure, from Union Colonel Joshua Chamberlain to Confederate General Robert E. Lee, capturing the honor, pride, and doubt that define the men who fought here. The film's length, over 4 hours, allows it to immerse the audience in the strategies, politics, and personal stories behind the battle. It's not just about troop movements and tactics, but about the ideals and sacrifices driving them. Chamberlain's defense of Little Round Top, portrayed with quiet dignity by Daniels, remains one of the most stirring moments in any war film. Gettysburg was notable for its authenticity, with thousands of Civil War reenactors participating to recreate the scale of the conflict. The result is a production that feels lived in and historically grounded, avoiding the polished Hollywood gloss. While it didn't dominate the box office, the film earned a devoted following among history buffs and veterans. It's a rare war epic that values dialogue as much as action, making the battle's outcome resonate long after the guns fall silent. For anyone seeking a deeper understanding of America's bloodiest war, Gettysburg remains essential viewing. 9. Crimson Tide, 1995. In the tight corridors of a nuclear submarine, tension becomes a weapon. Tony Scott's Crimson Tide transforms the war movie into a psychological duel, pitting two commanding officers against each other under the shadow of global annihilation. Gene Hackman plays Captain Frank Ramsey, a hardened veteran ready to launch a nuclear strike against a rogue Russian faction. Denzel Washington is Lieutenant Commander Ron Hunter, a calm, by-the-book officer who demands absolute confirmation before pulling the trigger. When their orders come through garbled, the two men lock in a battle of wills that could decide the fate of millions. Scott's kinetic direction keeps the pressure mounting, the submarine's steel walls closing in as paranoia and protocol collide. The claustrophobic setting turns every conversation into a standoff, every silence into a threat. Quentin Tarantino, uncredited, polished the dialogue, adding sharp, rapid-fire exchanges that give the film its verbal edge. Hans Zimmer's score pulses like a heartbeat, alternating between martial power and simmering suspense. The cast is packed with talent. Viggo Mortensen, James Gandolfini, George Zunza, each adding to the tension with subtle performances that suggest fractures in the chain of command. Crimson Tide isn't about waves of troops or explosive battles. It's about the war inside the human mind when faced with impossible choices. Released in the post-Cold War era, it reminded audiences that the threat of nuclear war was never entirely gone. In the end, victory doesn't come from who holds the most firepower, but from who has the strength to hold back. 10. Courage Under Fire, 1996. A Desert Night. Confusion. Friendly fire. Edward Zwick's courage. Under Fire begins in the fog of the Gulf War and unravels into a gripping investigation of truth, honor, and the weight of command. Denzel Washington plays Lieutenant Colonel Nathaniel Serling, a tank commander haunted by a tragic mistake, accidentally destroying a friendly vehicle in the chaos of battle. Reassigned to a desk job, Serling is tasked with evaluating the case of Captain Karen Walden, a medevac pilot who died under fire and is set to become the first woman to receive the Medal of Honor for combat. The film unfolds as a tense mystery, with Serling interviewing Walden's surviving crew members. Each retelling paints a different picture, some heroic, some damning. This fractured narrative keeps the audience questioning not just what happened, but why stories diverge under the stress of war. Washington delivers a performance of quiet intensity, portraying a man desperate to confront his own guilt while searching for the truth about another soldier's legacy. Meg Ryan breaks from her romantic comedy image, playing Walden with grit and vulnerability. Matt Damon, nearly unrecognizable after extreme weight loss for the role, delivers a haunting portrayal of a medic scarred by trauma. Zwick balances action with moral inquiry. The battle sequences are chaotic and raw, but the real drama happens in sterile offices, where words, not bullets, decide the final verdict on a soldier's honor. By the end, Courage Under Fire isn't just about Walden's heroism. It's about the courage required to admit failure, the courage to tell the truth, and the courage to live with it. In a decade crowded with war spectacles, it stood out as a thoughtful, morally complex drama that lingers long after the final salute. 11. When Trumpets Fade, 1998. Mud, Blood, Reluctance. John Irvins. When Trumpets Fade takes a darker, less heroic approach to World War II. Set during the Battle of Hurtgen Forest, one of the war's bloodiest yet least known campaigns. It tells the story of Private David Manning, the sole survivor of his platoon. When Manning is unexpectedly promoted to sergeant, he resists the role, wanting nothing more than to survive and escape the carnage. But survival has a cost. And in war, leadership is often forced on those least willing to take it. As Manning leads new green recruits into battle, the audience sees the war not through the lens of noble sacrifice, but through the eyes of a man desperate to avoid it. Irvin strips away the glory often associated with war. The forest setting is bleak and claustrophobic, with danger lurking in every shadow. Death is sudden and often senseless. The cinematography favors earthy, muted tones, reflecting the hopelessness that permeates the soldier's world. The performances are raw, particularly from Eldard, who captures Manning's transformation from self-preserving cynic to reluctant leader. Supporting roles from Zach Orth, Frank Whaley, and Dylan Bruno bring authenticity to the squad's desperate fight for survival. A made-for-TV release on HBO, When Trumpets Fade, didn't get the theatrical spotlight of its peers, but it has since earned a reputation as one of the most unflinching portrayals of World War II combat. There are no grand speeches here, just the bitter truth that in some battles, victory is measured in inches, and survival is the only glory. 12. The Tuskegee Airmen, 1995. Engines roar over Europe's skies. Red tails flash in the sunlight. The Tuskegee Airmen tells the inspiring true story of the first African-American fighter pilots to serve in World War II. Men who had to fight racism at home before they could fight the enemy abroad. Directed by Robert Markowitz, the film stars Lawrence Fishburne as Hannibal Lee, a composite character representing the determination of the real pilots. Alongside him are Cuba Gooding Jr., Andre Braugher, Alan Payne, and Malcolm Jamal Warner, portraying a squadron that must prove its worth to a military establishment that doubts them at every turn. The film doesn't shy away from depicting the prejudice these men face during training, from segregated facilities to open hostility from fellow servicemen. Yet, it also celebrates their camaraderie, skill, and unbreakable resolve. When they finally take to the skies over Nazi-occupied Europe, their performance is nothing short of heroic, earning them a reputation for never losing a bomber they escorted. Fishburne's performance is a standout, dignified, determined, and deeply human. Braugher and Gooding Jr. bring depth to the squadron's internal struggles, balancing humor, rivalry, and brotherhood. The aerial combat sequences, though made on a TV budget, are thrilling and well-staged, focusing on the pilot's perspective rather than spectacle. Originally aired on HBO, the Tuskegee Airmen won an Emmy and a Peabody Award, ensuring that the legacy of these trailblazing pilots reached a wide audience. More than just a war story, it's a testament to perseverance and the fight for equality, a reminder that history's victories are often won on multiple fronts. 13. Memphis Belle, 1990. The roar of 4 Wright Cyclone engines fills the sky. Memphis. Belle takes us inside the belly of a B-17 bomber on its 25th and final mission over Nazi-occupied Europe. A dangerous run that, if completed, would send its crew home. Directed by Michael Caton Jones, the film is inspired by the real-life crew of the first U.S. Army Air Force's heavy bomber to complete a full tour of duty in World War II without losing a man. Matthew Modine plays Captain Dennis Dearborn, the young but determined pilot tasked with bringing his men through one last gauntlet of enemy fire. Bill Paxton, Harry Connick Jr., Tate Donovan, and Sean Astin fill out the colorful, close-knit crew, each with their quirks, fears, and motivations. The story unfolds almost in real time, beginning with the tense hours before takeoff and culminating in a harrowing aerial battle against flak bursts, enemy fighters, and mechanical failures. The cramped, noisy interiors and the constant threat of sudden death immerse the viewer in the claustrophobic reality of high-altitude bombing. While the film captures thrilling action, it also celebrates camaraderie. Moments of humor and banter among the crew are juxtaposed against the sobering knowledge that any mission could be their last. Trevor Jones's soaring musical score underscores both the grandeur of flight and the fragility of the men who undertake it. More than just a tale of wartime bravery, Memphis Belle is about endurance, teamwork, and the bond forged when survival depends on every man doing his part. It's a war movie that soars on both spectacle and heart. 14. Legends of the Fall, 1994. Sweeping vistas of the Montana wilderness. A family bound by love and torn apart by war. Edward Zwick's Legends of the Fall is an epic family saga that spans decades, with World War I serving as its most shattering turning point. Brad Pitt stars as Tristan Ludlow, the wild, restless middle son of Colonel William Ludlow, Anthony Hopkins. Raised in the open beauty of the frontier alongside his brothers Alfred, Aidan Quinn, and Samuel, Henry Thomas, Tristan's life is forever altered when Samuel brings home his fiancée, Susanna, Julia Ormond. Love, rivalry, and loyalty intertwine, but when the brothers go to fight in Europe, the horrors of war fracture their bond beyond repair. Zwick captures the brutality of trench warfare with unflinching realism, mud, gas, and the relentless artillery that claimed a generation. These sequences, though only a portion of the film, are pivotal, shaping the characters' destinies and fueling the emotional turbulence that follows. Pitt delivers a career-defining performance, portraying Tristan as both heroic and self-destructive, a man haunted by what he's seen. Hopkins lends gravitas as the patriarch watching his family unravel, while Ormond embodies Susanna's quiet longing and resilience. The film's lush cinematography and James Horner's stirring score wrap the tragedy in beauty, making the story's emotional blows hit even harder. While it's, not a conventional war movie, Legends of the Fall uses the backdrop of conflict to explore themes of love, loss, and the inevitability of change, proving that war's impact reaches far beyond the battlefield. 15. Heaven and Earth, 1993. Rain-soaked rice fields. Bombs falling from a distant sky. Oliver Stone's Heaven and Earth completes his Vietnam War trilogy, following Platoon and Born on the 4th of July. With a perspective rarely seen in American cinema, the war through the eyes of a Vietnamese woman. Based on the memoirs of Legilai Hayslip, the film stars Heap Thi Le as a peasant girl whose idyllic childhood in rural Vietnam is shattered by the French, then the Viet Cong, then the Americans. She is pulled into the war's chaos, enduring imprisonment, assault, and displacement, before eventually marrying an American soldier and moving to the United States. Stone's direction blends intimate drama with epic historical sweep. The early sequences, set in Lilai's village, capture the rhythms of rural life, the laughter, the traditions, the community, before war erases them. The battle scenes are chaotic and terrifying, but it's the quiet moments of loss that resonate most deeply. Heap Thi Le's performance is luminous, carrying the film with grace and strength. Jones delivers a layered portrayal of a man scarred by his own combat experiences, whose marriage to Lei Lee becomes another battlefield. While Heaven and Earth was less commercially successful than Stone's earlier Vietnam films, it remains one of his most personal and ambitious works. It's a testament to resilience and survival, a reminder that the scars of war are borne not just by soldiers, but by civilians whose lives are forever altered. The 1990s redefined the war movie, from sweeping historical epics to intimate personal dramas. These 15 films didn't just depict conflict, they reshaped how we understand it. Which of these changed your perspective the most? Like, share, and subscribe. The conversation on war and cinema has only just begun.